Imagine walking down a street where 8 out of every 10 people you see are women. No, this isn't some parallel universe. This is Latvia, a fascinating Baltic country where men are seriously outnumbered. We're talking about one of the biggest gender gaps in the world, with 85 men for every 100 women. Pretty wild, right? But here's the thing. This isn't just some random coincidence. It's a story of war, vodka, and some seriously surprising modern-day plot twists. And when we say Latvia has a man deficit, we're not just throwing around random numbers here. Picture this. In the capital city of Riga, the situation gets even wilder. Young women in their 20s and 30s outnumber guys by an almost 2-to-1 ratio in some neighborhoods. The dating scene? Let's just say it's interesting. But check this out. It's not just Latvia dealing with this gender gap. The entire Baltic region is experiencing what scientists call a male disappearing act. Estonia and Lithuania are close behind, making this corner of Europe a unique demographic puzzle. Here's where it gets really interesting. While most countries worry about having too many men, looking at you, China, Latvia's been dealing with the opposite problem for decades. In fact, since the 1800s, women have consistently outnumbered men here. But that gap? It's gotten bigger, way bigger. And we're talking big numbers here. Recent statistics show that for every 100 women in Latvia, there are only 84.9 men. To put that in perspective, imagine a room with 100 people. 54 would be women, and only 46 would be men. But it gets even more dramatic when you look at specific age groups. Among people aged 30, 40, the ratio drops to 80 men per 100 women. And once you hit the over 65 age group, hold on to your seats, it plummets to just 45 men per 100 women. That's less than half. No wonder Latvian grandmas are some of the most independent women you'll ever meet. The cities tell an even more dramatic story. Urban areas like Riga and Daugavpils have become what locals jokingly call female republics. Meanwhile, rural areas are seeing a double whammy. Not only are there fewer men, but young people of both genders are packing their bags for bigger cities or other EU countries. Immigration isn't helping balance things out either. While some men do move to Latvia, they're vastly outnumbered by those leaving. And here's a twist. When Latvian men emigrate, they often marry foreign women and don't return. Meanwhile, Latvian women who leave tend to come back home, further tipping the scales. So how did Latvia end up with this unusual gender imbalance? Buckle up, because this story's got more plot twists than a Netflix series. First, let's rewind to World War II, a devastating period that hit Latvia's male population particularly hard. The country lost around a third of its population, with men bearing the brunt of it. We're talking about entire generations of men just gone. Between Soviet and Nazi occupations, deportations, and combat casualties, Latvia's demographic landscape was permanently altered. But it wasn't just the war itself. The aftermath brought waves of deportations to Siberia, primarily targeting men who were seen as potential resistance leaders. But wait, there's more. The Soviet era brought its own challenges. Here's a dark fact that'll make you think. The life expectancy gap between Latvian men and women reached its peak during this time. Why? 2 words: vodka culture. The Soviet period normalized heavy drinking to such an extent that it became a serious public health crisis, affecting men disproportionately. We're talking about a culture where refusing a drink could be seen as an insult, and where workplace drinking was just normal. Then came the wild 1990s after the Soviet collapse. Picture this, an entire economy crumbling overnight. While women adapted to the new capitalist reality, learning new skills, starting businesses, and taking on professional roles, many men struggled to find their place in the rapidly changing society. The result? A generation of men facing higher rates of unemployment, health issues, and shorter life expectancy. Here's a mind-bending statistic. Latvian women currently outlive men by an average of 10 years. That's one of the biggest gender gaps in life expectancy worldwide. And it's not just about living longer. Women here are more likely to get university degrees, hold professional jobs, and even run companies. Add to this the fact that many young Latvian men headed west after joining the EU in 2004, looking for better paying jobs in construction and manufacturing, and you've got yourself a perfect storm of demographic imbalance. Some small towns lost up to 30% of their young men during this period. Kind of gives a new meaning to man drought, doesn't it? Even today, risky behavior continues to affect men's life expectancy. From dangerous driving to swimming in freezing lakes after a sauna session, yes, that's actually a thing, traditional concepts of masculinity still take their toll. As one local saying goes, a real Latvian man fears nothing. Unfortunately, sometimes including basic safety precautions. Now, what happens when women seriously outnumber men in a society? Well, Latvia's become a fascinating real-life experiment in gender dynamics. And trust me, it's reshaping everything from dating apps to boardrooms. Let's talk about dating first, because, well, it's complicated. Imagine Tinder, but with a serious plot twist. Local women often joke that finding a decent man in Latvia is like trying to find a needle in a haystack, if the haystack was on fire, and the needle probably moved to London. Dating apps in Latvia show an almost comical imbalance. Women often compete for the attention of the few available men, completely flipping the usual dating app dynamic. But here's where it gets interesting. Latvian women aren't sitting around waiting for Prince Charming. They're building empires. With men in short supply, women have taken over pretty much everything. Walk into any university classroom in Riga, and you'll find women making up about 65% of the student body. Peek into corporate boardrooms? Same story. Latvia has one of the highest proportions of female managers in the EU. We're talking about 45% of all management positions. The marriage market? It's like nothing you've seen before. The pressure to get married young has practically vanished. The average age for first marriages keeps climbing, hitting 31 for women and 33 for men. And get this, many Latvian women are choosing to stay single rather than settle. As one local journalist put it, why marry a man who'll need more care than our future children? Speaking of children, single motherhood here isn't just accepted, it's practically normalized. Around 40% of children are born to unmarried mothers, and society barely bats an eye. The traditional family unit has been completely redefined, with grandmothers and aunts often playing the roles traditionally reserved for fathers. The workplace has transformed too. Latvia has the highest percentage of female CEOs in Europe, and women dominate fields like medicine, law, and education. Even traditionally male-dominated sectors are seeing a shift. Want to see a female construction project manager? In Latvia, that's just Tuesday. But it's not all girl power and breaking glass ceilings. This imbalance creates its own set of challenges. Mental health professionals report higher rates of loneliness among women, particularly in their 30s and 40s. And while women are crushing it in their careers, many report feeling pressured to be superwomen, managing both professional success and traditional family roles, often without a partner to share the load. There's also been a curious cultural shift in what people consider masculine work. Jobs that might be male-dominated elsewhere, like bank teller or real estate agent, are seen as women's work in Latvia. As one local puts it, in Latvia, if you want something done right, you ask a woman. If you want it done at all, you still ask a woman. Now, what happens to a country's economy when women take the lead? Latvia's giving us a front row seat to this economic plot twist, and the results might surprise you. First off, forget everything you know about the gender pay gap. Latvia's flipping that script. While it hasn't disappeared completely, spoiler alert, it still exists. It's one of the smallest in Europe. Why? Simple math, really. When women dominate the workforce, including high-paying positions, those old salary patterns start to crumble. But here's where it gets really interesting. Latvia's basically become a testing ground for female entrepreneurship. Walk down any street in Riga, and you'll find women running everything from tech startups to construction companies. Get this, over 40% of all businesses in Latvia are owned by women. That's not just high for Europe, that's high for pretty much anywhere. The banking sector? Totally female-dominated. Healthcare? Same story. Even in tech, traditionally a boys' club everywhere else, Latvian women are crushing it. The country's dubbed itself the female Silicon Valley of Eastern Europe, with women making up nearly half of all IT professionals, double the EU average. But it's not all smooth sailing in this female-led economy. Here's the catch. With fewer men in the workforce, certain industries are struggling. Construction, manufacturing, and heavy industry face constant labor shortages. Some companies have started offering male premium salaries, basically paying men extra just to fill these positions. Talk about a reverse gender pay gap. Another quirky economic side effect? The male-oriented service industry is booming. Male barbers, personal trainers, and dating coaches can practically name their price. Some male-focused businesses report charging up to 3 times what they could in other European countries. Supply and demand at its finest, folks. Foreign investment has taken notice too. Several international companies have chosen Latvia specifically because of its highly educated female workforce. As one investor put it, "Where else can you find a country where most of your potential executives already come with multiple degrees and speak 4 languages?" The real estate market has developed its own fascinating quirks. With more women living independently, there's been a boom in small, secure apartments in city centers. Real estate agents now advertise properties as perfect for the independent woman, complete with enhanced security systems and proximity to well-lit areas. So what's it actually like to live in this female-dominated society? Let's take a walk through a typical day in Latvia. And trust me, it's nothing like you'd expect. First up, morning rush hour in Riga looks a bit different. Instead of suits and briefcases, you'll see an army of professionally dressed women commanding the sidewalks. The few men you spot? They stand out like pandas at a polar bear convention. Local cafes have caught on. Many offer Power Woman breakfast specials and host female networking events before the workday starts. Nightlife? Now that's where things get really interesting. Clubs and bars have had to completely reinvent themselves. Ladies' nights? That's so last century. Here it's all about gentlemen's night, where the few guys who show up get treated like rare Pokemon. Some clubs even offer male customers free drinks just to balance out the ratio. As one club owner puts it, running a nightclub in Latvia is like running a chicken farm where roosters are an endangered species. But it's not all about partying. The culture has adapted in some fascinating ways. Fitness centers run women-only CrossFit classes where participants can deadlift more than most guys. Shopping malls have entire floors dedicated to female professionals, with personal styling services specifically designed for boss ladies. Even car dealerships have changed their approach. Forget about mansplaining engines here. Most salespeople are women who know their target audience doesn't need to bring a man along to make decisions. Public spaces have evolved too. Parks and recreational areas are designed with female safety in mind. Well-lit pathways, emergency call buttons, and regular security patrols. It's so effective that Latvia has one of the lowest street crime rates in Europe. Turns out, when you design cities for women's safety, everyone benefits. Traditional gender roles? They're basically extinct. It's totally normal to see women changing their own tires or handling home repairs, while the few local men are comfortable being homemakers or working in traditionally feminine jobs. One popular saying goes, "In Latvia, a woman's work is, well, everything." Even the language is changing. Latvian, which traditionally had masculine forms for professional titles, has had to adapt. New feminine versions of words for CEO, engineer, and president have become the norm. As one linguist joked, our language had to catch up with reality. So, thinking about visiting Latvia? Get ready for a travel experience that'll flip everything you know about European tourism on its head. And yes, the gender imbalance affects tourists too, in some pretty unexpected ways. First thing you'll notice, safety, like next level safety. Latvia's cities are some of the safest in Europe, especially for female travelers. Solo women travelers often say they feel more comfortable here than anywhere else in Europe. One TripAdvisor review put it perfectly. It's like having an invisible sisterhood watching your back. But here's the funny part. If you're a male tourist, prepare for some serious attention. Foreign guys report feeling like they've suddenly become celebrities. "I've never had so many women start conversations with me at coffee shops," said one American visitor. "It's flattering, but honestly kind of overwhelming." Some male tourists even joke about needing a fake wedding ring just to get a moment's peace. Accommodation has its own quirks. Many hotels now offer special female-focused floors with enhanced security and amenities designed specifically for women travelers. Think better lighting, more secure locks, and even female-only staff. Some hostels have flipped the usual model completely, offering female dorms as the default, with limited male-only options. Transportation's interesting too. Uber and taxi services here have a unique feature. Female passengers can request female drivers, and there are plenty available. Late-night buses have special women's safety seats near the driver, though they're rarely needed given how safe public transport is. The tourist industry has adapted in creative ways. Walking tours? Most guides are women, offering perspectives on the city you won't find in your typical guidebook. Want to learn about local culture? There are special female power tours showing off Latvia's history of strong women, from medieval merchants to modern CEOs. And don't even get me started on shopping. The souvenir industry has completely embraced the gender gap theme. You can buy t-shirts with slogans like Latvia, where women run the world, or endangered species, Latvian men. Local markets are dominated by female vendors selling everything from traditional crafts to tech accessories, all with a distinctly feminine touch. Now, living in a female-dominated society isn't all girl power and breaking glass ceilings. Latvia's unique gender imbalance comes with its own set of modern-day headaches that nobody saw coming. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, the pension crisis. With women living way longer than men and making up most of the elderly population, Latvia's social security system is creaking under the pressure. Picture this: entire retirement communities that look like an endless grandmother convention, with the healthcare system scrambling to adapt. Then there's the education exodus problem. Young women are so well educated that many find Latvia's job market too small for their ambitions. The result? Brain drain on steroids. As one local economist puts it, we're excellent at educating women, but terrible at keeping them here. Many head to other EU countries, making the gender gap even worse. Dating apps? They're basically broken. The severe gender imbalance has created what locals call dating app fatigue. Women report feeling like they're in an endless competition for a shrinking pool of eligible men. Some dating apps have even had to modify their algorithms specifically for Latvia, because the standard ones just can't handle the skewed ratios. Here's another weird one. The housing market is having an identity crisis. With more single women living alone longer, there's huge demand for small, secure apartments. But construction companies? They're struggling to find enough male workers to build them. Talk about irony. The workplace has its own puzzles too. Some industries are becoming so female-dominated that companies worry about losing diversity of perspective. As one tech CEO mentioned, when your entire management team is female, you risk creating the same echo chamber that all male teams used to have, just in reverse. And let's not forget about the psychological impact. Mental health professionals report rising rates of loneliness among both genders. Women feel pressure to be superachievers in both career and personal life, while the few local men often report feeling intimidated by such accomplished potential partners. So where is Latvia's unique gender story heading? Well, grab your crystal ball, because the future looks interesting. Demographics experts predict the gender gap isn't closing anytime soon. In fact, projections show it might get even wider in certain age groups. But here's the twist. Latvia's basically becoming a blueprint for how future societies might handle similar imbalances. The government's getting creative with solutions. They've launched what they call Operation Manhunt. No, seriously. It's a series of initiatives aimed at both keeping local men healthy and attracting male immigrants. Think free health screening specifically targeting men, and fast-track visas for qualified male workers. Tech might help too. With remote work booming, some Latvian companies are specifically headhunting male employees from abroad who can work virtually. As one HR director put it, if we can't find enough men in Latvia, we'll import them through the internet. But perhaps the most interesting trend is how younger generations are adapting. Gen Z Latvians are growing up seeing powerful women as the norm. Young boys here don't bat an eye at female bosses, and young girls dream of being CEOs without thinking it's anything special. So, what can the world learn from Latvia's accidental experiment in female empowerment? Quite a lot, actually. This tiny Baltic nation has shown us that when women take the lead, not by choice but by circumstance, society doesn't collapse. Instead, it adapts, evolves, and in many ways, thrives. Sure, it's not perfect, but it's fascinating. From safety innovations to economic adaptations, from dating app algorithms to linguistic changes, Latvia's experience offers a unique window into possible futures that other countries might face. As one Latvian sociologist beautifully put it, "We didn't choose to become a female-dominated society. But now that we are one, we're showing the world that it's not just possible, it's powerful." So next time someone asks you about gender equality, tell them about this tiny Baltic nation where women aren't just leaning in, they're leading the way. Because sometimes the most interesting social experiments aren't the ones we plan, but the ones that life throws at us. And who knows, maybe Latvia's present is the world's future. Now that's something to think about, isn't it?